Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'll just take a second to let everyone come into the room now. But yeah, really, really nice to see so many people here. And yeah, really, really nice to be able to get started and to discuss together. I suppose our opportunities for the Fossil Fuel Treaty campaign and our journey to Santa Marta and beyond. So this webinar is going to give, I suppose, just a briefing on the European Network campaign. So looking towards the first conference on transitioning away from fossil fuels, which will be jointly co-hosted by Colombia and the Netherlands. So I think that we probably have most people now, which is great. So we can get started. So I suppose just to begin, wanted to talk through our agenda for today, and what we're going to, I suppose, focus on. So to begin, I'm going to walk you through just our objectives and context. So I suppose how the conference itself came to be, and yeah, just to be able to, I suppose, provide a little bit of context there for everyone. And then, yeah, so starting to set the scene then in terms of the Santa Marta conference itself and civil society engagement and what that's going to look like and how people can kind of participate. But I know that a lot of people on this call are already part of that coordination. So yeah, really great to see some kind of recognized names and people here. And then we are going to pass on to Nico and Emily, who are going to talk about the distributed mobilizations. And then Viviana, our comms manager, is going to talk about communication and I suppose our overall engagement there. And then we're going to talk about Europe specifically, and we're going to hear from our advocacy and campaigns lead, Alex, and then we're going to hear from some of our national leads as well, before we will move on to a time for our Q&A. So there will be time for questions at the end. So suppose to get started, just in terms of our objectives for the call, but also objectives just in terms of, I suppose, the Europe region itself, is that we really want to build understanding and support among the European network before Santa Marta, and just to strengthen alignment on our key arguments, talking points, and calls to action, just to make sure that we're all in coordination together on that. And then, of course, to generate momentum and signal widespread support leading into the conference. So I suppose to talk in just more, I suppose in terms of the global picture on what that means, is that, yeah, I suppose that in terms of what we have done so far, just to acknowledge the amount of work that the movement has done, and that we wouldn't be able to be at this stage now, if it weren't for all of the support that people have kind of brought forward, and how we have shifted the conversation to keeping, I suppose, fossil fuels as a topic of conversation instead of putting it to the back as has been done before. But yeah, so we really want to, I suppose, just create the strongest possible political signal to ensure coordination around the kickstarting of negotiations of a fossil fuel treaty, and to clear the pathway towards a second conference in the Pacific. So Pacific Island states have, I suppose, expressed interest in hosting that kind of second convening. Um, so I suppose just to share that there has been like a really big seismic shift in dialogue around the international cooperation on equitable fossil fuel supply side policies, and just to acknowledge that that's, I suppose, where we are now, and again how much effort and work that we've collectively put into that. But yeah, so that globally our objectives are to kind of continue and build on that shift, to, build and magnify the momentum behind the fossil fuel treaty to date. So across press, social media, civil society, philanthropic support, and political momentum. And yeah, so just to, continue that coordination together, which is just really exciting. But I suppose just to kind of briefly go back just towards the context for this and how this is happening, and is just in terms of that, so I think 6 years ago now, that there was, I suppose, an acknowledgement of the lack of discussion on fossil fuels as the root cause of the climate crisis, and that the Sorry, as everyone is introducing themselves in the comments, I've actually just realized that I didn't introduce myself. But my name's Dervla and I'm a Europe campaigner with Fossil Fuel Treaty and I am from Ireland. But yeah, apologies for that. Got a bit carried away, too excited to start sharing with everyone. But yeah, in terms of I suppose the coordination behind the conference and how I suppose the idea came to be is that we have a group of like-minded or states working together to kind of bring the fossil fuel conversation into yeah, I suppose multilateral cooperation so we can actually achieve a global phase out of fossil fuels. And yeah, so the treaty initiative was born with the idea to complement the Paris Agreement and to create that kind of legally binding mechanism that is so necessary. So I suppose in terms of what that actually looked like, um, and the progress to date on that is that in at COP28, eventually fossil fuels were included in the text. And that was a great measure of success. But unfortunately, as we have seen, that wasn't kind of a continuation in the UNFCCC space. And that COP30, there was quite a high expectation. And there was an element of failure in that aspect in the terms that we didn't kind of make significant progress on that language to have a transition away from fossil fuels. But I suppose to highlight that there is quite a large coalition of countries who are willing to work on that. And that there was quite a large and broader coalition of countries that came out of that, and 86 countries supported the need to develop a roadmap. And the Fossil Fuel Treaty brought 18 countries together to announce with Colombia the intent to co-host the first conference to transition away from fossil fuels. And of course, the Netherlands is a co-host of that conference as well. So I suppose we really just want to maintain that momentum, and we really believe, I suppose, that the treaty should be a part of that solution. So the idea is, I suppose, to kickstart a series of diplomatic conferences, and we hope that the second convening of these countries would be able to be the place to kind of kickstart these negotiations. And we look to the Pacific Island states for their leadership on this, and to kind of continue, I suppose, our goal of achieving a legally binding mechanism for this to happen. So I suppose just in terms to move on to the next slide of the Santa Marta civil society preparations that CAN and DCJ are doing, absolutely amazing work, led by Liddy and Tasneem. And if you want to get involved in the Europe coordination side of things, you can contact Hilde, who works with Oxfam in the Netherlands. And that there's quite a number of different working groups. I know that we actually accidentally coincided with one of the groups meeting today, the global call. But yeah, so really appreciate everyone's time to be here because I know a lot of people will kind of be going between that call too. But yeah, so I suppose in terms of the CAN DCJ coordination and the side of things on the treaty side as well and what we're working on is that we're really hoping, I suppose, just to support European organizations in participating to the fullest possibility in the conference itself. So whether that is remotely or whether that is on the ground, at the conference too. So, we are looking at that in kind of a two-sided approach. So in terms of the civil society participation itself, and then in terms of the diplomatic approach. So in terms of the guide itself to participating in the first conference on transitioning away from fossil fuels, we have created a guide on this. So to very, very briefly, because it is, I suppose, kind of long and you guys can go through it in your own time. This guide was created as a support for organizations to engage with the conference, and the government of Colombia and the Netherlands had called for written submissions from all registered organizations. Unfortunately, the date to make a submission has passed, but that thank you Vivi for sharing the link. But yeah, so I suppose that the idea behind the guide was that we were able to, I suppose, provide um, input to the government of Colombia and the Netherlands on how the there has been a lack of a global binding framework and kind of highlighting that as a key part of the discussions to be held in Santa Marta. So underneath the third work pathway, that we can really acknowledge that we don't have this mechanism yet. So then the second part of the guide was, I suppose, really emphasizing the fossil fuel treaty as a key solution to that, and that there are already, a substantial number of countries who are willing and ready to work to achieve this. But I suppose just to acknowledge that this guide, despite the fact that the submission date has passed, this guide can still be used to scale your own public communications. So that is detailed on page 3 of the guide. To participate in distributed mobilization and the conferences that are happening, regionally at the moment or in the coming weeks. And to advocate for governments to send the highest level of representation. So if your government hasn't confirmed yet, so I think Can Europe have a great tracker on their website in terms of what governments have confirmed their participation or not yet, but that this guide can be used as a way to encourage your governments to participate to the highest level of representation. So I suppose just very briefly, to highlight then that the government of Colombia and the Netherlands have a website. I'm sure by now you guys have had a chance to look at this, but that the website itself is just highlighting the first conference, transitioning away from fossil fuels, and so I suppose just to highlight the methodological funnel for that, and how they, I suppose, plan to put this in motion. So some of these things have kind of already passed in terms of the deadlines, but that the first kind of stage was written contributions. They're going to be doing a technical synthesis now at the moment, and then some of these have started, but there's going to be virtual dialogues per chapters, so specific focus on the people summit, private sector, trade unions, parliamentarians, subnational governments, and academia. And then there is going to be preliminary sector for position papers, and in-person chapters, so the dialogues that are happening in Santa Marta. And then there's going to be a selection of sector spokespersons, then the high-level segment itself, and then the conference outcome document, which of course will be one of the things that comes after the conference. But yeah, thank you all so much. I'm going to very briefly just hand over to Nico. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but he's going to talk you through the distributed mobilizations and how people can kind of get more involved on that side of things. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Devla. And hi, everyone. So I'm Nico. I'm based in France, and I'm involved in the tiny Tidal collective, which is supporting the mighty treaty team with the Santa Marta conference, and mainly with distributed engagement. And so, as you can see, or yeah, on the next slide, the the idea is basically to use Santa Marta as an opportunity to not only, contribute to the official negotiation process, but also use it as a moment to build a fossil fuel phase out from below. And so to explore and experiment with different forms of participation for civil society. And there is a combined approach between the distributed mobilization and the People Summit. So basically, the idea is for those of you who will be in Santa Marta as civil society representative to have a way to voice your demands, concerns, and approaches to the fossil fuel phase out from Santa Marta, and for those who won't be in Santa Marta to voice your own demands and concerns and approaches from wherever you are. The distributed mobilization approach is really about expanding participation in time and space, whereby the People's Summit is about expressing civil society commitment and pressure on the ground in Santa Marta. And the distributed mobilization is basically a call for everyone to organize a local or national declination of the Santa Marta conference. So as many smaller Santa Marta conferences as possible in the lead up to the conference to feed into the conversations that will happen at the conference, and to feed into the People's Summit that will take place in the days prior to Santa Marta, and that will actively contribute to the text that will be discussed in Santa Marta. So one approach with two different ways of relating to the process depending on where you will be around the Santa Marta conference, and Amélie will describe this with more details.
Yes, thanks, Nico. Hi, everyone. I'm Amélie. I'm part of the same collective as Nico, supporting the Santa Marta distributing mobilization or action process. And I'm gonna drive you over the next slides. Maybe before getting deeper into the tools that we have, I'd like to briefly explain a little bit further the theory of change behind the mobilization. Nico said a lot already, but I just want to emphasize that what is maybe unique in this process is that it's not a traditional protest dynamic, as we are not mobilizing against the conference, we are mobilizing to support it and to help it succeed. So we want a conference delivering ambitious outcomes, and we want leaders to feel legitimate or legitimated somehow to take bold decisions. It's so somehow a constructive pressure if you get what I mean. So in terms of tools, we have a shared platform, and this is the key element that we're going to be present you. It's this fossilfreerising.org platform. Yes, you can see the URL on the slide. And the website is the central hub where people will find all the information, all the resources, and all the tools they need to engage in the process. Whether they intend to go to Santa Marta, or they don't intend to go and they rather want to mobilize from their own country, in their own community. So it's really, this website is really a coordination tool to help scale and connect the movement and the different components of the movement all together with each other. There are practical resources, thematic briefings, guidance on key issues, and materials also to help building your message and your actions. Know how to organize your actions in practice. It's important, I think, to understand that we really encourage organizing actions everywhere, regardless the size of or the format of the action, because what matters for us is not only big, large-scale mobilization, but also the multiplication of initiatives all over the countries, through all the world, in all contexts, in Europe, North America, Americas, Asia, everywhere. And each action, whether it's, I don't know, at your university, workplace, town hall, church, or even in front of official buildings, if you feel it's relevant, it's going to contribute to to send this broad signal that we want to send to Santa Marta, that there's a wide, diverse, and growing support for an ambitious outcome. So that's really important. You can find on the website all the different types of action that you may want to organize, but it's really not limitative either. You can even consider other options if you have other ideas. It can be, I don't know, movement building actions, panels, assemblies, symbolic actions outside, cultural initiatives. Everything is really a genuine contribution to the process. It has, of course, to be adapted to your context to make it a real shared global mobilization. It has to be your own moment as well. And also, and of course, you have also to adjust it to the reality of your policy space, I would say. There's one specific format we give, I mean, we focus on the website in the tools. It's the idea of organizing, such as Nico described it a bit earlier, national Santa Marta conferences, because we felt that some countries may want to use Santa Marta as an opportunity to come together with strong joint demands to their representatives in Santa Marta, and then there's a detailed guide in the tools for you to see how you could put that together, and so the type of outcomes that you could develop and that would be useful for the conference. You will also find different content-based documents which can help you to understand concretely what you could talk about in the events or actions you will organize. Idea is not to narrow down or to force you to talk only of some issues rather than others. It's more to build, uh, align sort of an alignment in the discussions so that it's going to converge in Santa Marta on some key issues such as climate urgency, just transition, debt, equality or equity, north-south equity. So you will find that content as well in the tools. And what else can I tell you? Yes, there's also, just to conclude briefly, a module that you can use if you want to email directly your minister. You may have understand that all countries, all states are not expected in Santa Marta. Some are actively invited, some are less welcome, let's say. And you have these tools on the website to address your state if you find your own state in the list, to send emails and to ask your representative to attend the conference and to come with a strong ambition and strong contributions. This is obviously something that can be shared by your networks and widely used. It's not limited to us here. And we can also consider and discuss further agreements to share data of the people who will participate in the action. If you want, you can obviously reach out to us about that. And then I'm going to hand it over to Alexandre, I think.
Yes, thanks so much for the presentation of the global objectives and the ways to engage at global level and of course also in Europe. I'm Alexandre Nolo. I'm the head of campaigns and advocacy in Europe. And I'm really glad to see a full room for this webinar. So now we are while we have covered the I would say the most global part of the discussion, I'd like to focus more on Europe objectives and or on political engagement, comms and campaign work in Europe. So I will start with our objectives first to go through that, and maybe we can move to the next slide, please. And thank you very much. And then my other colleagues, Viviana and our European campaigners, will, of course, participate to the discussion to present their work and also present our comms objective and narrative. So you will see in this slide that we have three main objectives, three strategic objectives in Europe, which are of course connected to Santa Marta. The first one is that we want to establish a coalition of willing European countries to really support the treaty, so a legally binding international mechanism, which is capable of addressing fossil fuel production, fossil fuel phase out, and transition support. And while we are working across a number of countries in political spaces in Europe, which clearly go beyond our priority countries, so that's also the goal of this call. We clearly want to work with various countries in Europe. So please reach out if you have any action that you would like to share with us and any work that you would like to do with us. While we have this European outreach, we are always ready to focus also on prior countries. So in the list of the prior countries, we have right now Ireland, Spain, and Iceland, because we think that there is a real political potential for these countries to join for the fossil fuel treaty discussions. And in terms of concrete actions that we are asking them, especially before Santa Marta, you might know that we will organize two high-level political events. One is the senior official meeting that will include all the participating nations of the treaty discussions, and which will also welcome observers. So we are asking these countries to become observers of this discussion, to implement a dialogue with all participating nations, but also be more familiarized to the mechanisms that will be included in the future treaty, and hopefully also educate them to the treaty, so they can also join officially the treaty discussions when the negotiation will start officially. That's for the first meeting. And we have a high-level meeting, which is a ministerial, where the same discussions will continue at the ministerial level as a direct follow-up of the senior official meeting. So it will take place directly in Santa Marta. And our European campaigners will provide you more details about that and where we are on the participation of each country. And the second objective is that, of course, we want to scale up campaigns in the target countries. Can you go back, please? Thank you very much. We want to scale the treaty campaign in target countries, so in the countries that we have mentioned, but we are, of course, always ready to support any initiative that is taken beyond, and we have already done so in many different countries. Like, for instance, in the UK, we continue to work very regularly with various partners there, especially stamp out poverty in GGN, for instance. We have been involved in Switzerland. We have implemented campaign and advocacy work in Luxembourg, Belgium, with significant advancements, for instance, with parliament resolutions. So while we are trying to scale up campaigns in target countries and dedicate clearly some capacities there, because we have to make some strong choices in terms of focus, we are always, of course, open to other type of collaborations in various European countries, especially before Santa Marta. And of course, Viviana will elaborate more about that, but that's the third objective. Of course, we want to build communications in target countries and in general in Europe to promote a just transition narrative, to be sure that the treaty is seen as the logical step and the logical solution to kickstart a fossil fuel phase out at the global level in a just manner. So that's a good transition to the next slide that will be led by Viviana.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone. Hi, I'm Viviana. I'm Communications Campaign Manager for the Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative, and I do comms globally for LATAM and also a bit for Europe. And in addition to what Gerbla, Alex, Amelie were mentioning, Nico were mentioning about the official submissions that we have made, the decentralized mobilization that you can already get involved in, and in addition to the upcoming People Summit, we can also work together on communications. This is something that we really would like to improve in the coming weeks and then months after Santa Marta. When it comes to our framing a treaty, or goal first, maybe the goal that we have in communications. Oh, can you go to yeah, thank you so much, Zoe. When it comes to our communications goal for a treaty, we really want to position Santa Marta and the fossil fuel treaty proposal as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to address the multiple crises who have the same root cause, fossil fuels exploitation, and which lead to climate breakdown, to biodiversity loss, economic instability, and conflicts. This is a framing that many of us in many different networks are, of course, promoting, because this is the logical comms to be developing around like the recent series of wars, like Ukraine war, Iran war, the Venezuela invasion. So
every time we see that the fossil fuels are the root cause. So this is definitely something that we need to address and include in our narrative. So that's also something that we're doing at Treaty, connecting it with Santa Marta. And we also want to position Santa Marta and Treaty as an opportunity to redefine international norms with this block of countries from the Global South who are leading the transition, who are making a proposal to really use multilateralism as a tool. So that's the communications goal that we have for the weeks and months ahead. And I'm gonna move to the next slide, if it's possible, Zoe, to super quickly explain the framing that we have for Europe for the coming weeks, with a specific highlight on these 6 points. But it's not that simple. It's much more nuanced, and we're gonna share the document anyway, so you're gonna have time to read it. And this is an open document. That's important. This is a living document. That's something that we want to make collective, and that you're going to have time to opportunities to input on. So for Europe, we really want to stress the fact that Europe is both facing an escalation of the climate impacts and also like still depending a lot on fossil fuel imports. And the series of wars and invasions that I was mentioning have really proved that the strategy from the continent to swap energy sources but still remain dependent on fossil fuels has just been an illusion. So energy sovereignty, energy security, as you all know in this room, of course, depends and lies, on renewables and on developing the renewable energy potential of the continent instead of relying on a declining industry, which is also fueling violence. Santa Marta, in this context, we want to frame it as a pivot, as I was saying, both to phase out fossil fuels, to define new international norms, and one of them is, of course, the proposition of the fossil fuel treaty. In terms of like equity and timelines, we really want to defend that Europe has a responsibility, and because of that historic responsibility, the continent needs to be phasing out first and needs to support Global South country in their transition process. And we try to go back to the national or a regional level by connecting all these issues. It's an opportunity for the European continent to stop being a passive country, increasingly vulnerable to the climate crisis, to becoming a country leading the transition and which is able to secure a fossil-free future for Europe, but also for the world. The international and equity dimension is really, really important, of course, in the framing for Europe. So I'm gonna share the resources. Can you move to the next slide, Zoe, please? Thanks. Because the idea is to change a bit the way we've been working together at the European level and to try to do more things together. So we really would like you to have those resources. The guide that Derbla was mentioning is super helpful to pitch treaty properly, to frame it properly in the communication. Like it includes so many key arguments for the discussion. So we're going to share it with you again if you don't have it already. We are going to share the European narrative that I summarized super quickly. And again, this is a living document. And we are also going to be sharing our global narrative or talking points for Santa Marta. An official email is going to come next week. So you're going to have like this package of communications tool, and you're also going to be able to access our landing page about COP. So all the resources are going to be there to understand how we are articulating treaty within the Santa Marta conference, how they're related, what's the opportunity, and how we want to pitch it. Something else which is coming and which is going to be super useful, is a short briefing which is going to explain the different tracks for the fossil fuel phase out, because we get like a lot of questions from partners, from journalists, even from decision makers who like not necessarily understand like, why do we need a treaty? Because we have Paris. Why do we need a treaty now that we're going to have the COP30 roadmap? So we really tried to make like I think it's not even 4 pages document explaining the differences and the complementarity between those different tracks and why within that context of multiple tracks, a treaty is still necessary. So that document is also going to help to pitch the treaty initiative within the European context, and it should be available next week. So I'm going to stop here for comms, letting you know that at the end, when we open the floor, you're going to have space to ask questions. And there is also a specific slide, I need to check the number, where you can like already input and add what is missing, what you would need to get involved in terms of like communications to be with us in that narrative battle. What would be useful for you? I'm also gonna add my email. This is something I didn't add. You can reach out and we can like discuss if needed to do more comms together. Yeah, that's it on my side, Alex.
Thanks so much, Vivi. I think that now I will give the floor to Esther, that can give you an update about the work that we are doing specifically in Spain, and Diabla will do the same for Ireland, and Laura for Iceland.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Alex. I think so if you can, go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm Esther. I'm the coordinator of advocacy and campaigning in Spain. So just to start with, I would like to provide like a super brief overview of the Spanish context now. As you probably know, like the Spanish government is leading the narrative in Europe against fossil fuels and for renewable energy. And this has been especially after the war in the Middle East and all the conflict that fossil fuels have generated, actually. So though we as a country are still heavily dependent on gas, like the recent push of our current government for renewables has made like the country less vulnerable if we compare it to other European countries. So just in terms of what we have done until now in Spain, so in terms of political advocacy, we've had meetings with different political actors, both at the regional and at the national level, including different political parties, but also ministries within the government. And we have also seen already good signs of regional support with endorsement of the Catalonia Parliament, and also this is underway in Navarra as well. And also we got like the endorsement, this is super recent, of La Xarxa, which is a network of more than 300 Catalan municipalities. And then now going to where our government positions itself regarding treaties. So they are very aligned in all our conversations with them. They are really aligned with the treaty principles and the need to phase out fossil fuels and the need for a just transition, actually. And our Minister for the Ecological Transition, Sarah Ekesen, has already confirmed that she will attend the conference in Santa Marta, but they are still unsure on how to position themselves regarding treaty. So this is why like our collective push is so important, like in the coming weeks to Santa Marta, but also later on after that. Because we are very hopeful to see like positive developments in the coming months. And last but not least, we are working closely with Spanish civil society, with our partners there, especially with Alianza por el Clima, with whom we have organized like very recently a political event in Madrid, gathering scientists, MPs, and civil society actors as well. We have launched a declaration backed by more than 100 organizations, asking our government to lead in Santa Marta and also to join in the call for a fossil fuel treaty. And actually, thanks to this event, the Spanish Parliament has committed to send also a parliamentary delegation to Santa Marta. And just to finish off, in terms of what is going to happen in the coming weeks, we are organizing a few actions, like the biggest one, probably the one in Madrid on 11th of April. So it's going to be like, I saw in the chat that you like the ideas of the website. So we're going to use one of them. We're going to do like a climate justice laundry. And our, let's say, slogan is going to be like clean the disaster caused by fossil fuels. So we'll put all the info in the coming weeks in the social media of Alianza por el Clima. So if you are in Madrid, you can keep an eye on it and check it out. And I'll hand it over to Laura to speak about Iceland. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I am Iceland's campaign and advocacy lead for the treaty. And today I'll give you a brief update about where we are in our campaign in Iceland. So, our engagement with Iceland has scaled significantly since last fall. As a nation with no fossil fuel production and an energy grid that's almost 100% renewable, Iceland's a compelling case to take a leading voice in the treaty initiative. So we had a visit this February with the founder and chair of the initiative, Tsipora, and Alexandre and I, and we met the Speaker of Parliament, several MPs across the political spectrum, other key allies, champions, officials with the Environmental Ministry, and etc. And we also secured a major feature interview for Tsipora in one of Iceland's most read newspapers and hosted a strategic session with local CSOs and champions to kind of ensure that our political advocacy is backed by a unified domestic front and to increase local awareness of the treaty initiative. And then we had a massive milestone. Reykjavik, the capital city of Iceland, officially endorsed the treaty. As the home to 1/3 of Iceland's population, this creates a very powerful precedent for the national government. And then we also held a live symbolic homage at one of Iceland's fastest melting glaciers in partnership with Glacier Nation from Colombia. And this event powerfully linked like glacier melting to the impact of fossil fuels, and the collaboration with Colombian partners serves as like a diplomatic precursor to the Santa Marta conference, aligning these North and South interests ahead of that summit. So now, after that visit, we're currently writing a joint letter with a broad coalition of NGOs to show broad-based social support. And then our president, Kumi Naito, will be speaking at the Wellbeing Economy Forum here in April. This is like a critical window to engage with high-level officials just before the Santa Marta conference. And our primary focus for now is to lobby to ensure that Iceland sends a delegation to Santa Marta and attends the treaty senior official meetings and the ministerial. So now I will hand it over to Dear Blah.
Hello again. Yeah, so I suppose to talk a little briefly about the Ireland campaign, we actually have quite a broad coalition of organizations working very, I suppose, intensely to get Ireland to, I suppose, um, yeah, move forward in terms of the global fossil fuel phase out. So there's a coalition of over 70 organizations who backed the fossil fuel treaty and its development in Ireland, who are strongly advocating for Ireland to join as a participating state. So one of our uh, partners, Trokra, has just recently started this really, really amazing campaign, which was launched just over the summer in terms of Ireland and its climate finance. And one of its main recommendations was putting forward the fossil fuel treaty. I was privileged enough to be able to accompany Minister Ralph from Vanuatu to attend the launch of this campaign. So Ralph Regenvanu is the climate minister from Vanuatu, and he spoke very strongly about I suppose the historic relationship between Ireland and the Pacific Island states, but also of, I suppose, the leadership of the Pacific, and why it's really important for other small island states and for states in the global north specifically to support Pacific Island states in this transition, and to, I suppose, take ownership and yeah, responsibility for the damage that global North states have caused. Um, but it was, I suppose, yeah, really amazing to be able to hear from Minister Ralph about this, and I suppose to highlight the historic relationship between Ireland and the Pacific Island states, as Ireland is a small island state itself, and we are exposed to volatile weather conditions if the AMOC were to collapse, and just to, I suppose, acknowledge that we aren't as far away from the horrific, I suppose, the horrific weather conditions that the Pacific are facing at the moment, and to realize that we actually have a position, and that we should use that privileged position to be able to put forward the leadership that the Pacific's already highlighting. But we've had a number of different activities over the last few years, and so not this February, but last February, we were joined by Mary Robinson for a panel discussion on the impacts that fossil fuels have on the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, and how fossil fuels are hindering their progress. So we took an example of that from a really amazing report that was written by different academics on, how specifically fossil fuels impact each and every one of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we were joined on that panel with a keynote address from Dr. Sinead Walsh, who at the time was the head of the climate unit in the Department of Foreign Affairs. So I suppose to acknowledge as well that Ireland to this point has, done a lot of great leadership. We do have a good bit to go, but in terms of the Santa Marta conference and where we are, that Ireland will be sending a delegation there, and it's just really great to see the progress of the coalition of countries working toward this. So I'd like to, I suppose, briefly acknowledge the work of Friends of the Earth Ireland and Action Aid Ireland and Christian Aid, and many other coalitions who are working together to, I suppose, make a fossil-free Ireland and a fossil-free future a possibility. So yeah, that there's a lot of people standing behind this movement who are kind of pushing it forward. Um, but yeah, I'll pass back to Alex just to wrap up.
Yes, thanks so much to all of you for this update for our prior countries. Next slide, please, Zoe. Thank you. So yes, that's a kind of a summary of the webinar, because some of the things have already been said, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand that our first objective is to build momentum around Santa Marta, and that we will continue to encourage like-minded European countries to attend to the conference. And so, of course, the support of mobilizations in Europe will clearly help to reach this objective. And it also includes the fact that not only all European countries invited to Santa Marta should attend and send a high-level delegation, but we want also to work with the Netherlands to make sure that they give sufficient space to the treaty discussions in Santa Marta. Our sub-objective, as we told, is clearly to encourage our priority countries to participate as observers in the two high-level political meetings that we are organizing, so they can better understand the initiative, engage in dialogue, and as said, ultimately move towards formally supporting the treaty. And finally, in the outcomes of the conference, we want to make sure that the treaty is reflected in the conclusions, and that there is an acknowledgement of the gap of governance that we have on fossil fuel phase out, and that the second conference will be also mentioned as the clear next step, because we have to understand that Santa Marta is just not a one-off conference, that's a process itself. So we will continue to maintain the momentum after Santa Marta. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of our upcoming events and plans. Of course, that's absolutely not exhaustive, and we will give more details in the slides and the emails that we will send to you. And but we will continue to target our countries at the communication mobilization level. So we have various plans that have been already presented by our European campaigners and Viviana. We will scale up until the Santa Marta itself, or diplomatic engagement also with them. So we have various meetings already set up with Spain at high level, and with Ireland and with Iceland. In terms of European communication, we to go beyond the priority countries, we want also to make sure that the narrative is also seen by all at the pan-European level. So it means that we will work on the Brussels OPED and on various communications products similar to this approach before Santa Marta, just to disseminate our messaging. We have also started to engage with MPs delegation, not only in our prior countries, but also at the European level with the delegation that will be sent by the European Parliament. So we are in touch with Can Europe with that to make sure that they are pushing for the treaty as part of a solution for a global phase out. And as said, it's definitely key to engage strategically with the Dutch government. So we are regularly in touch with the coalition leading on fossil fuel phase out in the Netherlands, especially with Oxfam, with Milieu Defensie, who have great plans before Santa Marta to make sure that the Dutch government give the space that we need to present the treaty as a complementary tool to the Paris Agreement. Next slide, please. So, Viviana, do you think that no?
We don't have time anymore. We have only 6 minutes. We should skip that and at least have a bit of space for questions. There's been a lot of questions in the chat already, but maybe people want to take the floor and now that they have the whole context, ask specific questions.
Yeah. Before we move to the Q&A, maybe you can move to the next slide, Zoe. So, oh yeah, no, that's not. Anyway, okay, that's perfect. So let's go back to the question. We open the floor and we have 5 minutes. Unfortunately, Diebla and I have a strong commitment right after at 4, so we'll have to leave. But we welcome any questions and that you might have. And you will find all contacts there, and everything will be circulated after the webinar. Zoe, do we have any questions that might not see in some ways?
Yes, we have questions in the Q&A section at the bottom. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, there might be a More button with 3 dots, and there's a Q&A there, and you can ask questions there and see questions that have already been answered.
I can take the first one about how the conference is going to be connected to COP31. This is part of the coming document about the articulation between the UNFCCC, the roadmaps under the COP presidency. So you're going to have some answers in there. We don't have all the responses yet, but there's going to be some kind of articulation. Maybe not like an official presentation, probably not, because this process is outside the UNFCCC, but there's definitely going to be a connection between the different tracks for the fossil fuel phase out. I'm trying to answer really quickly. Maybe you can also take a look at the last question, guys. I'm going to take the first 3 questions. If it's going to be a treaty text, no, there's not going to be a treaty text. The goal of the conference is to build the context to go to a second conference where hopefully negotiations are going to start. What we want is to cement the need for a treaty within the Santa Marta Declaration outcome, whatever the outcome, the shape of the outcome is. We want a strong treaty mention in there, which is going to take us to conference number 2. And this is when we're going to have an opening of the negotiation. And if I take the third question, which is about registration. Yeah, the organizations that have sent their submissions should be getting information from the Colombian government soon. So let's see. I really suggest that you guys take a look at the website, the official website from the Colombian and Netherlands government. There is a contact email in there too if you want to check where the process is at. But yeah, this is really on their hands. Treaty again is going to be one of the topics of the conference, but this conference goes well beyond treaty. So anything that has to do with the official process goes with has to be asked to the official email from the Colombian government and the Netherlands. Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to take the following questions.
Yeah, I can take some of them. So there is a question about our plan to engage the company in Asia. So we do have Asian campaigners and Asian region lead that you can contact too. Please contact us directly on the emails that are provided, and so we can put you in touch. Regarding the mobilizations in Germany, Sandra, what I suggest is that we can definitely continue the conversation in bilateral, so we can discuss about what we can do in Germany. And in the slides and in the emails that we will circulate, we'll include a link where mobilizations and actions that you are taking on the ground can be provided, but also feel free to update directly the website dedicated to distributed mobilizations presented by Nicola and Amélie. It's where we really want to gather the overall initiatives that take place in Europe. Otherwise, I think that I'm not able to cover all the questions, but because unfortunately I have to go. So I suggest that we keep these questions for us, and we will try to address them in our follow-up emails or follow-up communications. So feel free to reach out directly by email, and we will do our best to respond to your questions. I suggest that we can close the call. As said, so thanks so much above all for joining. That was really a full room. We loved all your comments in the chat. Of course, we were not able to respond to all of them, but you have all our contacts. Please feel free to reach out. That's exactly the goal of this call, to be in touch, to expand to be sure that the network is engaged on the treaty, and that we make sure that Santa Marta delivers the outcomes that we expect, and become an historical moment that clearly define a good path to kickstart the negotiations next year. So thanks so much again for joining, and we stay in touch.